Hello everyone. Welcome to my channel. Echo of Life. Let me share something that many people only discover when life asks them to pause. You don't really grow up at 18. You just learn how to conceal your hurt more carefully. You learn to smile through weariness, to keep moving even when something inside feels incomplete, and to act as though the past doesn't call your name when everything grows still. But that unfinished part, that ache that returns in quiet moments, that isn't weakness. It's your inner voice asking to be heard. And in the view of depth psychology, attending to that voice isn't just a trend or a cliche. It's central to feeling whole. Within every adult lives a younger self that never stopped hoping to be seen, heard, and cared for. That part doesn't vanish as you age. It stays within, influencing your fears, your reactions, and even how you give and receive love. When criticism lands harder than it should, when rejection feels catastrophic, when you undermine good things because somewhere deep down you don't believe you deserve them, that's your inner child speaking through you. Most of us still live out stories that our younger selves believed were true. Maybe love felt conditional when you were small. Maybe you learned to earn approval by staying quiet, being good, or looking after others just to feel secure. So you learned survival over true connection. And now, as an adult, those emotional patterns repeat. People-pleasing, avoiding conflict, pushing yourself to exhaustion, because somewhere inside, that child still believes love must be earned. This process of acknowledging and welcoming those hidden parts is often called individuation, the journey towards psychological wholeness. It isn't about fixing yourself. It's about recalling who you were before the world told you who to be. You weren't born ashamed or afraid of failure. You learned those feelings. They became emotional habits etched into your nervous system. Healing your inner child is about gently unlearning them, one memory, one belief, one pattern at a time. Sometimes healing begins with something as simple as listening. You notice the thought, "I'm not enough." You pause, and instead of shutting it down, you ask, "Who taught me that?" Often the answer isn't your adult self. It's the child who once felt invisible, who thought silence meant safety, who tried to make everyone happy because it seemed no one was happy with them. There's a well-known saying, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." That's what the unhealed inner child does. It guides from behind the curtain, shaping your relationships, your self-worth, your career, even your sense of purpose. It influences how you love, how you handle pain, and how much you allow yourself to receive. But once you start to bring that child into the light, to speak to it, understand it, hold it, you begin to break old cycles. You stop looking for parents in your partners. You stop trying to prove your worth through accomplishments. And for the first time, you start living from authenticity, not from defense. So many people feel emptiness even after reaching success. They achieved everything their adult self wanted, but their inner child was still waiting for permission to rest, to play, to feel safe. Healing isn't about becoming childish. It's about reconnecting with the parts of you that were pure, creative, curious, and full of wonder before life taught you to be afraid. There is a metaphor in psychology of the wounded healer, the idea that our broken places can become sources of wisdom. Often those who have suffered deeply become the most compassionate, the most understanding, the most capable of helping others. But to get there, you must stop running from your wounds. You have to sit with them long enough to hear what they have to teach you. Maybe your wound is abandonment. Maybe it's shame. Maybe it's the belief that nothing you do is ever enough. Whatever it is, it's not your enemy. It's an invitation. An invitation to return to the origin of that pain and bring light where you once knew only darkness. That's where true change begins. Not in perfection, but in presence. Healing isn't linear. It's remembering one day and forgetting the next. It's crying over things you thought you'd moved past. It's learning to be gentle with yourself even when you're frustrated that you're not better yet. That's healing. That's growth. Imagine, you're sitting alone after a long day, and a familiar sadness arrives. It doesn't seem to make sense. Your life looks fine on the surface. But that feeling isn't random. It's a message, a memory rising. Maybe it's the loneliness you felt as a child when no one noticed your tears. Maybe it's the guilt you carried for needing too much. Instead of pushing it away, What if you simply said, "I'm listening"? That single act of acknowledgement is powerful. When your inner child finally feels heard, something inside softens. You stop needing the world to validate you in the same old ways. You stop chasing relationships that replay old wounds. You stop trying to fix yourself because you realize you were never broken. Every person you meet reflects something inside you. Those who irritate you, inspire you, make you feel small or seen. They mirror parts of your own inner world. And as you heal your inner child, those mirrors begin to change. You attract people who speak gently because you've learned to speak gently to yourself. You find peace in solitude because your younger self no longer feels abandoned there. But let's be real, healing isn't glamorous. It's messy. Sometimes it's lonely. You might feel like you're falling apart, but what's really happening is integration. The scattered pieces of you, from different years of your life, are slowly coming home. Your inner landscape is vast, filled with symbols and echoes of your story. The inner child is one of the most meaningful symbols because it connects you to your beginnings, your innocence, your raw humanity. When you ignore it, your adult self can become rigid, anxious, and disconnected. When you nurture it, your whole inner world begins to realign. You start noticing small moments, how sunlight touches your hands, how laughter feels lighter. You rediscover joy without needing a reason. You stop apologizing for your sensitivity and begin to see it as a kind of intelligence. Sensitivity lets you feel the world deeply, and feeling deeply is what makes life meaningful. We're often taught to suppress emotion, stay productive, keep moving. But healing doesn't happen in motion. It happens in stillness. It happens when you pause long enough to listen to your own heart. When you stop trying to escape pain and instead ask, "What are you trying to show me?" That's when your inner child starts to trust you again. It begins to understand it's safe to come out, to play, to create, to feel. Slowly, the distance between who you are and who you were starts to fade. You realize you've spent so long trying to become someone new, when all along healing was about remembering who you were before the world grew loud. That realization changes everything. Once you start to nurture that child within, to listen, forgive, and protect it, you no longer need others to do it for you. You stop chasing love and start embodying it. Life begins to feel lighter, not because the world changed, but because you did. The real work isn't about escaping pain. It's about meeting it, walking into the dark with a light, rather than pretending the dark isn't there. The parts of yourself you've been avoiding, the sadness, the insecurity, the longing, they aren't flaws. They're doorways back to your humanity. You heal your life by healing the child within it. And when you do, the world stops feeling like a place you must survive and starts feeling like a place you can truly live. There's something sacred about the moment you stop running from yourself. It's subtle. Maybe it's when you stop apologizing for being emotional, or when you smile without forcing it. Maybe it's when you sit in silence and realize you don't need anyone else to feel complete. That quiet comfort you feel, that's your inner child beginning to trust you again. The great privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Yet many of us spend years trying to become what others need, what our parents wanted, what society praised, what our past seemed to demand. We adapt to survive. We wear masks so well that, after a while, we forget what's underneath. And yet somewhere, a small voice whispers, "This isn't me." That voice is your truth, your inner child reminding you of who you were before you learned to pretend. Our hidden side, sometimes called the shadow, isn't something evil. It's the parts of yourself you've rejected, repressed, or hidden because they weren't accepted by the world. That's often where the inner child lives, in the parts of you that still feel too much, want too much, or fear too much. The only way to bring that child into the light is through compassion, not control. Many try to heal through self-improvement, reading, manifesting, or building new habits. But healing isn't always about becoming better. It's about becoming honest. It's about sitting with the pain you once tried to outrun and saying, "I see you. I won't leave you again." That kind of honesty changes a person. Not knowledge, not achievement, but genuine self-acceptance. You may think you've forgotten your childhood, but your body remembers. It remembers the tone that made you shrink, the silence that felt like punishment, the warmth that made you feel safe. It recalls who comforted you and who didn't. That's why certain smells, songs, or moments can bring sudden tears. They're not random, they're echoes. Your inner child speaks through sensations, through patterns, through the way you respond to life. When you finally choose to listen, everything begins to shift. How you speak to yourself changes. Instead of, "I'm so stupid," you say, "I made a mistake, but that doesn't define me." Instead of ignoring exhaustion, you learn to rest. Instead of hiding feelings, you express them in safe ways. Each small kindness toward yourself becomes a form of repair. You become the adult you needed when you were young. Inside each of us lives both the caregiver and the child. Our task is to bring them together, to blend maturity and innocence, wisdom and wonder, logic and emotion. When that happens, life feels more balanced. You stop swinging between extremes, overworking and collapsing, loving too intensely and shutting down. You start living from a place of quiet steadiness. Healing your inner child doesn't mean pain disappears. It means the pain no longer controls you. You stop identifying with it. You begin to see that hurt was never proof you were broken. It was proof you were human. Every scar tells a story of survival. Every tear shows you cared deeply enough to feel. Slowly, your relationship with the past changes. You stop trying to rewrite it and start to understand it. You see your parents not as villains or heroes, but as people who also had wounded children inside them. You see old hurts not as defining moments, but as chapters in a larger story. The moment you forgive, not to excuse but to free yourself, your inner child exhales for the first time. There's a quiet beauty in that freedom. You laugh without analyzing why. You start creating again. Painting, writing, dancing, whatever your younger self loved. You rediscover curiosity. You remember what it felt like to look at the sky and wonder, not worry. And you realize healing your inner child doesn't just heal the past. It changes your future. When that wounded child becomes whole, you stop repeating old stories. You no longer seek validation from people who can't give it. You stop proving your worth through productivity. You stop choosing pain disguised as love. You start choosing peace, even when it's quiet. And that shift touches every part of your life. Your work, your relationships, your creativity, your sense of purpose. There's a longing in each of us to feel complete. And it calls to us through symptoms. Anxiety, burnout, restlessness, numbness. These aren't random. They're signals. They're the psyche's way of saying, something within needs attention. When you answer that call, when you turn inward instead of outward, life starts making sense in ways it never did before. Healing your inner child isn't about chasing happiness. It's about finding peace and being real. It's not about erasing scars. It's about recognizing they're proof of your becoming. It's knowing that the part of you that feels lost is also the part that knows the way home. Sometimes the most powerful healing moment comes not in therapy or meditation, but in the simple act of holding yourself while you cry. Because that's what the child inside always needed. To know someone would stay even when things were messy. That someone is you now. Once a relationship forms between who you were and who you've become, you start to see yourself differently. Not as someone trying to heal, but as someone who is healing. Not as broken, but as blooming. Every time you comfort that younger version of you, you rewrite your story. You teach your heart that it's safe to trust again. That love doesn't have to hurt, that you belong here. Ultimately, wholeness doesn't come from perfection, but from integration. From loving the scared child, the awkward teenager, the tired adult, all at once. When you embrace them all, you stop searching for completion in others, because you realize it's been within you the whole time. Healing your inner child won't make your life flawless. You'll still have hard days, doubts, and disappointments. But underneath it all, there will be a sense of safety you never had before. Because now, no matter what happens, you know you won't abandon yourself again. And that, more than anything, is what it means to heal your life. It's not about escaping the darkness. It's about bringing light into it. It's about meeting the child you once were, taking their hand and saying, "We made it. We're finally home." Thank you for watching my video. Please subscribe my channel. For more update,